Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us. I'll give it the customary few moments to let people arrive before we get started. I hope you're all well and having a good start to the year. For me, it feels like January has passed in the blink of an eye. Okay, let's get going. To those I haven't already said hello to, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us for our latest webinar that we host as OneTrust partners, and we delve into the common privacy challenges and how we, the Data Privacy Group, tackle them for our clients around the world using the OneTrust platform. Today we're going to focus on rights requests and provide some insights into the different rights across the globe. We'll look at what your legal obligations are and how, through the wonder of automation, we can overcome some of the challenges we all face. Having had a sneak peek at the notes for today, I'm really excited to share some of our experiences with you. Perhaps like us, you've seen the pandemic has prompted a bit of a rights request storm, which has proven to be quite the challenge for organisations. We know that responding to even a few rights requests can be an expensive and time-consuming endeavour, but to replicate these manual processes multiple times in a time frame that meets regulatory standards at scale, well, that can feel impossible. So to protect your company and maintain consumer trust, the time to automate your privacy rights workflow is now. There has never been a better time. And to help us achieve this, today we'll hear from the Data Privacy Group's resident DSAR expert, Callan Sheen, who will show us how, with the right tools, this process can be streamlined, giving your company time to focus on core business activities, or do that data discovery project you've wanted to kick off, or some consent and preference management, or even just be able to take a lunch break. But before we get into it, and as way of introduction, I'd like to share a couple of slides on your host for today, and also who the Data Privacy Group are and how we fit into the privacy landscape. So, without further ado, let me introduce myself. I'm Sean Wright. I head up the business development activities for the DPG. I'm based in the UK and lucky enough to work with people from all over the world. They have to manage privacy programs across multiple jurisdictions for medium and large multinational organisations. I get to have some interesting conversations around their business goals, and I help them map out solutions that make data privacy a success throughout their organisation. Once my job is done, I'm heavily reliant on my brilliant colleagues in the client delivery team to keep all of my promises. So alongside me and leading the technical conversation is Callan Sheen. Callan is one of our leading account managers and is integral to the client delivery team. We're very fortunate to have Callan. He's one of only a few OneTrust Fellows of Privacy Technology, having passed all of the OneTrust expert accreditations, and has also built out globally compliant rights request solutions for multinational organisations. So you're much safer with him on this topic than you are with me. And just a little bit about the Data Privacy Group here. We're headquartered in the UK, but we have clients spanning 94 countries, falling into into the jurisdictions of all the major privacy laws. We are a OneTrust partner and have built all of our solutions on top of the OneTrust platform by design. It allows us to deliver the most powerful, all-encompassing privacy software to our clients and layer on specific workflows and management structures to drive maturity into our clients' privacy programs. Coupled with this, we work with globally recognized law firms to ensure all our workflows meet the requirements of the different regulations across the globe. We are also proud to be a member of the IAPP. It ensures all of our employees are informed on data privacy news and key events as they happen. We're also driving towards having all of our employees accredited with IAP certifications like CIPP, CIPM, CIPT, etc. And the IAP website, by the way, has some fantastic content on there. So if you haven't already, I would highly recommend you go and check it out. And moving on, a snapshot here of some of our clients. They are the reason we're able to work across 94 countries and gain experience on all the modern privacy laws we see today. We've been lucky enough to have enabled global FTSE and Fortune companies to untangle multiple privacy regulations, We will address immediate privacy challenges. We benchmark our clients against their peers and help them to operationalize data privacy, making it scalable and sustainable for them. We are very thankful to be working with each and every one of them, and really, they provide us with our USP. All of the projects we work on, the brilliant people we work with, and the experience we gain, that collective learning goes into the solutions we engineer going forward and how we create best practices. But enough about us. I'm going to pass you on to Callan now, who's going to walk you through his section of the presentation with the aim of giving you a real insight into some of the things to consider when automating your DSAR process and how that translates into the OneTrust module. Over to you, Cal.
Cheers for that intro, Sean. First off, before we start, I'd just like to say a quick thank you to everyone who's joining us today. I'm very excited to be part of this webinar, so I think I'm just going to jump straight into it. As I'm sure all of you are aware, data subjects have certain rights regarding personal information which an organisation might have stored around them. The data subject can have a variety of different relationships with a business, so this could be a customer to the business, a contractor, a supplier, or it could even be a current or ex-employee. Any person who has personal data processed is entitled to exercise these rights by submitting a request to the organisation. So typically what this is going to be known as is a data subject's rights request. When an organisation receives one of these requests, they will be obliged by law to respond to it. And depending on the type of request that is submitted, there's going to be different relevant activities which need to be carried out by the organisation in order to complete the request. With that in mind, let's now take a closer look at the types of rights requests that businesses might be faced with. Although there are numerous other rights detailed within the GDPR, the main 6 rights which we're going to be focusing on today are likely to be the rights which you would receive a request around. So all of these are laid out within Chapter 3 of the regulation. So this will be, as you can see on screen, an access request, an erasure or deletion request, an objection to processing, a rectification request, a restriction of processing, and a review of any automated decision making which may be carried out on the data subject. To give you a little bit more context on what each one of these entails, I'm just going to quickly go into each of these for you now. So, the right of access gives the individual the right to find out whether or not an organisation is processing their personal data. If this is the case, they are completely entitled to be given full access to any data which is being processed by the organisation. A data subject also has the right to ask an organisation to delete data that they may have stored relating them. I should point out, however, this isn't a limitless right, and there are only a variety of circumstances in which this right can be exercised by the data subject. These circumstances include scenarios such as when the organisation is relying on consent or legitimate interest, if the data is no longer necessary for the original purpose of collection, if the data is solely used for marketing purposes, or if the data is being processed unlawfully. The right to objection gives the data subject the ability to ask an organisation to stop processing their personal data. Much like the right to erasure, this can only be exercised in certain situations. These are when the lawful basis for processing relies on legitimate interest, or when the personal information of a data subject is being used directly for marketing purposes. The right to rectification gives the data subject the ability to ask an organisation to correct any personal data which they believe is incorrect, incomplete, or even out of date. If a rectification request is made, you should review any data held on the individual and amend it as instructed. The 5th right which I'm going to highlight is the right to restriction of processing. This means that the subject is entitled to ask an organisation to restrict or pause the processing of their personal data. If this right is exercised, the organisation may continue to store their personal data, but it should not process it for any reason unless you're able to regain the consent of the individual. The information must be used for defence of a legal claim, if it is to protect the rights and freedoms of an individual, or if it is in the public interest. Finally, the data subject has the right to review any solely automatic decision making made on them, and they have the right to request human intervention to review this. As well as these rules that I've just set out, there are some overarching rules which have been laid out within the GDPR that should be adhered to ensure that requests are being handled in a compliant manner. As the individual is exercising one of their rights, in most cases this request should be fulfilled free of charge. Although if the request is deemed manifestly unfound or excessive, you are able to charge a fee for responding. After a request is made, you must fulfill this request within 30 days. You are able to request a time extension if the request is of a particularly complex nature. And it is also important to note that the request must be verified through some form of identification before any actions can take place. If the data subject doesn't provide any verification, you are not bound to fulfill the request in any way. Well, the GDPR will be the main focus within today's webinar. It's important to mention other jurisdictions around the globe which set out a number of rights afforded to the data subject. These legislations include the Californian law, which is the CCPA, the recently enforced Chinese PIPL, and the Brazilian LGPD. While these legislations do present some similarities to the GDPR, there's also some key differences which should be noticed in the process of handling DSARs. Some legislations also do present some different rights. So for instance, the CCPA gives the individuals the right to ask for their personal information not to be sold. Furthermore, it also has different timeframes from between 15 and 45 days, depending on the request which has been submitted by the data subject. I hope this gives you a brief overview on each right under the GDPR. While we don't have time to go into the intricacies of every request and every legislation today, if you would like a little bit more in-depth information on kind of the specifics around handling any request, please just get into contact with one of us, and one of our privacy professionals will happily assist you. Even though it is important to understand some of the legislation around data subject requests, I think the crucial part is that organisations understand the process of handling requests if and when they are received. There can be a variety of issues faced when it comes to actioning and formulating a response to a DSAR, and it can also become very overwhelming for an organisation, especially if the organisation is processing multiple DSARs in the same time period. To manage this challenge, we believe that it is crucial to have an effective process in place to ensure that every DSAR is handled in a compliant and, more importantly, efficient manner. This will be done without taking up copious amounts of time and putting strain on the company resource. So we believe that operationalising this approach is key. We personally advocate the use of using OneTrust because it's a centralised system which enables you to capture, store, process, respond to all requests across every jurisdiction. Within OneTrust, we've developed some custom online web forms and request-specific workflows that are tailored to fit the organisational structure of each of our clients. These web forms will include subtask automations, which will send out relevant tasks that need to be completed to fulfill each stage of the request. We've also developed right-specific response templates. This helps to ensure that any communication with the data subject is fulfilled in not only a compliant manner, but also efficiently and coherently. I think after that, now is going to be a great time for me to just jump into OneTrust. I'm just going to give you a little bit of a demo on how the tool works and explain how using OneTrust to automate your DSAR process can be of huge benefit to your organization. We are in OneTrust. I'm just going to briefly take you through some of the sections which you'd need to be aware of in order to build out your DSAR process. So where we are at the moment is we're in the Web Form Customization Center. So this is the area in which you build your web form, which will be externally put out onto your site to enable the data subject to submit a request. OneTrust does enable you to completely customize this to fit your branding. So as you can see, we've got in the header, the data privacy group within our brand colors. The whole form is customized, so each of these fields here is in our brand colors, and we also have our address within the bottom. OneTrust does also allow you to customize each of these fields, so you can input whatever text you'd like. As you can see here, what we've got is an external GDPR rights request template. So we've got each of the different fields for who could be submitting the request they'd like to make, then they need to input their name, email address, date of birth, and a little bit of detail on what their request is and what they would like doing. As I also stated earlier, it is a requirement under the GDPR that the data subject is verified. So we have created an option here where they can upload proof of identity so we can get on with processing the request. Within here also, so we've got rules. So as you can see, we've created a rule for the deletion request. This is a request which we will be going over today shortly. So in here, we've done some logic. So if the request type is equal to erasure, the workflow that will be produced for us to go through, which I will get into in a second, will be an external deletion request workflow. Within here also, you've got the approver, which for example, say today will be me, and you can send detail requests to someone's email, which again, for example, sake today will be me. So what this enables you to do when a DSI is submitted, it will alert you via email, so you know that a DSI has been submitted, so you can start the DSI process. Going into the workflow which I just mentioned, this will be what is used to work through each stage of the DSAR to ensure that it is fulfilled within a compliant manner. We have created a different one of these for every single DSAR because obviously each DSAR will entail different actions to complete it. So as I said, this is the deletion workflow. So as you can see, we have 5 stages up here. I will go through these later on within the walkthrough of how you would handle a DSAR, but just to show you the functionality of OneTrust here, you do have a few different options. So for example, within the in progress section, I have created subtasks here. What this does is when you get to this stage, these subtasks will be automatically sent out to the relevant person. Again, they've all been assigned to myself. So they will get a task description. So this task that I've just clicked on here is to confirm that data has been deleted. So you'll just get a quick message via email with a little description of what you need to do. Within this, you can also edit it so you can say how many days they do have to complete this subtask. You can say whether the subtask is required, and you can ask them to comment on the subtask. You can also ask them to suggest a resolution for the subtask. So within this one here, I have just done that the subtask is required because obviously it will be required for someone to check that the data has been deleted off your systems, and a comment required just so they can comment to say, yes, this has been completed. So as well as these subtasks, we have also provided a guidance text. This is just to give more of an overview of how to deal with the DSAR within each stage. So as you can see here, we do just provide a little bit of additional information. So say should you need a little bit more information from the data subject regarding the request, we've just listed the response template which you should use. So with that, I'm now going to give you a little bit of insight on what these response templates are. So let me just jump into that now. So now, just one last thing I do want to show you before we do actually jump into the DSAR process within OneTrust is just the response templates. So as you can see, we will have created one of these, well, different ones of these for every single request across all jurisdictions. But again, as we are focusing on the right to erasure, I will just show you one of these as an example. So within here, we've just got some pre-written text which has been written by ourselves. So this will be made for every scenario. So to ensure that every time you are communicating with the data subject, you are speaking to them in, again, not only a coherent, but also a compliant manner. So that is everything I want to go over within OneTrust. Now we are going to go through the process of actually handling a DSAR within OneTrust. So what I'm going to do now is take you to the external web form and show you how the data subject would actually submit a request. Now we are in the online web form. This is where the data subject will fill out their information in order to submit a request to your organization. As you can see, I have already filled this out just for time purposes today. So I've just filled this out. So it's an erasure request coming from a customer with all my details. I've also just uploaded a picture of our logo for today, but this is normally where the data subject would upload a picture of their identification. So now I'm just going to click submit. What you'll see is it just says one more step and that my identity needs to be confirmed. So this will just be within the customer's email address. So all they're going to have to do is go into the email which they've just given you to submit there, and they're just going to have to verify this from there, just to say that it is them actually doing this request. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go into my email now and just click this to say verify. And as you'll see, my request has been confirmed. So what we're going to do now is going to jump back into OneTrust, and I'm going to take you through the process of how you would deal with this DSAR after it's been submitted by the data subject. And then as you'll see now, we are now in the DSAR itself. So the workflow which we were discussing earlier, what you'll see is these stages have now come up here within this DSAR. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to work through the workflow on how you'd actually handle this DSAR. So obviously this is a deletion request. So what we're going to do, we know we've got a new DSAR and we've seen that the subject has submitted asking to delete all their information. So what we have here, we've got an internal messaging service. So I can put internal messages in here, which will only be seen by anyone who has access to the OneTrust portal. And then we've also got a public section here, which anything I put in here will be sent to the data subject. So I think what we're going to do, we're going to go into verified data subject request. Obviously, we've got the guidance here, so we can have a read through the guidance if we need to. Obviously, anyone who is coming in that maybe doesn't have so much knowledge on the jurisdiction or on the request itself might just want to read this to familiarize themselves with it before they make any actions on the request. So before we can actually go into the in progress section, what I am actually going to do is I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to ensure that the ID the data subject has provided matches up with the details which they've given us. The reasoning for this is because we don't want to be processing a DSAR and it actually be different details to the details they've provided us, or it not match up. As you can see, I have just uploaded the data privacy group as it's just an example on here, but typically this would be where the identification from the data subject would be uploaded. I've just typed in yes here and click save, just to let me know that yes, it is the correct person. And now we can move on into the next stage of the DSAR, which will be the in progress section. So within the in progress section, this is going to be the main area where most of the actions are actually completed to fulfill this DSAR. So as I told you earlier, we've created a variety of subtasks which will actually be used to ensure that each task is actually being completed. And as you'll see, there are different tasks which will relate to different sectors of the business. So as you can see here, I've got customer service, finance, human resources, and these are all assigned to me for this example. However, normally what these would be is they would be assigned to the relevant person within the business who is going to be responsible for taking care of this action for each sector within the business. So I'm just going to go into the customer service one here. And what happens when this request goes to in progress, all of these subtasks will be automatically sent out to this relevant person. And again, there'll be a description here. So within this one, it's just asking to say that you need to locate any personal information that the data privacy group may hold on this individual in your systems and ensure that it is deleted. So at this point, obviously, they're going to go off and they're going to ensure that this is deleted. Once they've done that, they're going to come into OneTrust, and where it says mark within progress, I'm just going to mark this as completed and select a resolution depending on what's happened, if they've not found data, if they have found data. So I'm going to say data found, and I'm just going to comment to say all data on the subject has been deleted. So I'm going to mark that as complete. Once it's complete, we can go back and see this has now got the status complete. What you're going to be looking for in this situation is to ensure that every single one of these systems has been marked off complete by the person who's responsible for this. And after that has been done, we can then click to confirm data deletion. And this has again been assigned to me, but this would normally be assigned to the approver. So once everyone in every relevant situation has completed their task, the approver should go in and ensure that the data has been deleted of all of the relevant systems. So I'm going to go ahead again and mark this as complete, and just say yes for now, mark is complete. So the only thing left to do now is the data subject response. As you can see, we've created a subtask for this as well, so it will be assigned to the relevant person. As you can see within the task, it just says the response should be made using the GDPR deletion request. We have complied with your request response. So we're going to go into activity now. We're just going to go to public. So what we're going to do, the reason we do this is to make sure the data subject can see this. We're then just going to type in the response template and find it within all of the response template list. So this will just copy and paste it in. And now we just need to fill in the relevant sections to ensure that it reflects the subject request. So obviously I'm just going to put my name in here, but you normally would use the data subject's request name. We're just going to go through and make sure that there is nothing in there which we need to take out or any edits that need to be made. And then lastly, we're just going to pop in our contact details here. So I'm popping in my email, but you would obviously pop in your organization email. And then we're going to sign it off with my name. So now we're just going to click reply. And what this is going to do is it's going to send an email to the data subject with the email they provided. Within this email, they're just going to receive a link, and that's going to take you to the portal which you see on screen now. So the data subject's just going to have to pop in their email address, pop in the code. They're then going to get emailed an access code, which they also need to input. They'll then be able to see the response to the requests. So they can just view this message, and obviously all this is saying is just letting them know that the erasure request has been completed and there's nothing else needed on their behalf. So I think that quite nicely wraps up everything that I'm going to show you today within OneTrust. I really do hope this demonstration has given you a little bit of an overview on how OneTrust works and how you can automate the DSAR process. Just a little bit of a recap now. So from the online web form, which allows the data subject to automatically input their request, to the web forms, which enable every single stage of the request to be handled compliantly, to even the subtask, which allow you to automate every single action which you're going to have to do depending on the DSAR which is made. And then lastly, the response templates, which of course enable you to not only respond to the data subject in a coherent manner, but also ensuring you are always compliant. I have noticed we have had a few questions throughout this webinar. So I think what we're going to do now is Sean's just going to read these out quickly, and we're going to go into a little bit of a Q&A session just to get all these answered for you guys. So Sean, if you'd just like to read out the first question for me then please, mate, and let's get this started.
Callan, thank you very much for taking us through that. Yes, we have had some questions come through. Just a quick note to everyone that we have limited time here, so apologies if we don't answer your question now. However, we will take the time to read them all and email you a response. Okay, first question. How do we know what systems should be checked to find data around the subject? How do we know what systems should be checked to find data around the subject?
Thank you very much, Sean, and a pretty great question to start this Q&A session. So understanding where data is stored within the business is going to be one of the key components of your privacy program. So data mapping will be crucial to help you understand this. It's just going to help you know what data you've collected as an organization and where it is stored. However, OneTrust does also offer two additional tools which can be integrated within the DSAR module to enable you to drastically lower the time which you're going to be spending trying to find this personal data which you've got stored within your organization. So the first one which I'm going to talk about is data discovery. It's a great tool which some of our larger clients do use. So they use it as an automated discovery process, which helps to populate the metadata into a centralized catalog of data. It's an application which is connected to all the systems used within your organization, and it automatically discovers, classifies, and builds this catalog of personal data elements through scanning these systems. So this is just going to help you really aid the understanding on where your information is actually stored. The second tool which we use to enable an even more automated fulfillment of the DSAR process is targeted data discovery. So this tool automates the task required to discover any relevant personal data which you need to process this right, the right to request. Basically, this works by just searching your systems and retrieving all personal information related specifically to the data subject or the consumer. Within both these tools, there are hundreds of pre-built integrations, and we further supplement this just by building some custom integrations specifically to the needs of each individual client. These are mainly going to be used for businesses which receive a lot of DSARs. We would definitely recommend implementing these tools just to help decrease the time spent processing a DSAR. For clients which do receive fewer rights requests, normally a manual process is perfectly sufficient to just fulfill DSARs, but for any of you bigger clients that are receiving a lot, it would definitely be something we recommend.
Yes, absolutely. If you're receiving a lot, and we've seen as many as 6 a day, pop us a message to talk about steps beyond the DSAR module as Callan just described. Excellent. Right. Second question here. We have additional steps within our DSR procedure. Does OneTrust allow you to edit the workflows? I'll read that again. We have additional steps within our DSR procedure. Does OneTrust allow you to edit the workflows?
Yes, so within OneTrust, every workflow is going to be completely customizable. This means that you can add as many stages or subtasks as you'd like to each of your workflows. The example which I've gone over today is just literally our basic solution. However, we are able to adapt the workflow to fit the needs of any organization. Often we've seen things before like creating new subtasks or the addition of extra workflow stages, such as seeking approval from the legal team before communicating with the data subject. So anything's possible within OneTrust. Just let us know your needs and we can get them all implemented for you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Cal. I have another question here, and we should have time for one more after that. Here it is. You mentioned other rights under the GDPR. What are these, and why would they not be relevant for a rights request?
Okay, so yep, in addition to the six rights which I spoke about within the slide deck, there are two more rights that are set out within the GDPR. This is the right to be informed and the right to data portability. The right to be informed is typically provided through the privacy policy, which is going to be on your site. There are multiple different things which you will need to include within this document. Just to give you a couple of examples, it's likely to be things like the information on what types of personal data we collect and process, what legal basis we have for processing this information, things like the rights which we've discussed today, and how you can get into contact with the organisation. With the right to portability, this allows the data subject to receive personal data in a structured, commonly used, and machine readable format. Or it also is a request to the organization to transmit the data to any other organization. Essentially, this will all be covered under the right to access and will entail the exact same process. So we normally just handle this within the access request workflow.
Okay, last question. We often come across difficulties when providing customers with access to their documents containing confidential data or the personal data of other consumers stroke data subjects. How do you suggest overcoming this? Would you like that? I'll read that again. We often come across difficulties when providing customers with access to their documents containing confidential data or the personal data of other consumers stroke data subjects. How do you suggest overcoming this?
Yep, so this will have a link to the question we had earlier. Of course, you will need to ensure that only data connected to the requesting customer is provided, and this can be quite a time-consuming process, especially if there are hundreds or even thousands of documents containing other personal information. To counteract this, we use the targeted data discovery module that I just discussed to locate all the personal information on the data subject. We then pair this with OneTrust data redaction tool to bulk redact any information which is not related to the individual. Of course, this will have to be manually checked before being sent back to the data subject, but in our experience, this has really saved us days and days of hard work.
We will have to leave it there, I'm afraid. As I said, we'll ensure that all of your questions get answered, and I thank you for your patience. But if you have more than one question, or there were sections of that demonstration you need further guidance on, or perhaps you think your OneTrust environment isn't set up correctly, reach out to us. We're all very active on LinkedIn and we're very quick to respond via the usual phone and email channels. We'd be delighted to give you some time. We're here to help, so do get in touch. A big thank you to you all for joining us today. I hope you found the content useful. We value your feedback, so don't hold back if you feel we missed out anything. We'll upload this soon, so it's available on demand and for future reference. Big thanks to you as well, Callan. And from everyone in the Data Privacy Group, we wish everyone a great rest of your week and a safe and healthy 22. Take care.